I'm Marty Roth. I'm the president of the University of Charleston. I've been teaching international marketing, global marketing, and strategy classes for about 30 years now, and had a kind of great career working at Boston College, University of South Carolina, University of Hartford, and now the University of Charleston. And also had terrific opportunities to work with a number of multinational companies in executive education and consulting opportunities.
Hi, I'm Doug Quackenbos. I'm a lecturer in the marketing department at the University of South Carolina, where I've been doing that since 2016. Before that, I spent about 27 years in global business development and marketing roles with different multinational companies. I studied international business in my master's degree, and it's a passion of mine. And I'm currently looking forward to telling you about this book that we're going to talk about.
So we were interested in providing professors as well as students with what we describe as an end-to-end solution for an outstanding international marketing, global marketing, or a marketing strategy class that wanted to have a strong global orientation to it. We've had the CountryManager simulation being used by 140 colleges and universities around the world for the past few years, and it's been used by professors for a couple of decades now. But we know that it's often been a challenge for professors to cobble together a combination of a textbook or chapters, some cases, some assignments, some readings, videos, along with the outstanding learning opportunity that CountryManager affords its students. So with Foreign Market Entry and Growth book, this really gave us an opportunity to put all those pieces together into a comprehensive package to help professors have a full suite of great learning resources that integrate CountryManager into a class that'll really be a fun learning experience for their students, but also one where they're going to come out of it with a deep understanding of the framework, tools, concepts that international marketers can use to help their organizations be successful.
You know, we felt that this gives us a chance to get at the most important part, so to speak, of the international business cycle, which is foreign market entry and growth. Many students think about international marketing in a vague context, I've come to understand. They don't quite understand what it means to take a product to another market. They imagine that it happens, they know it happens. But by putting this book together, what we're able to do is to help the student understand in an applied way what it means to take a product from one marketplace where it's been successful and introduce it in a fully simulated way, but at the same time describe the process with the Foreign Market Entry and Growth book. And the fun part is, as someone who's done this for much of my career or had the good fortune of being involved in specific initiatives, it does a wonderful job of aligning with many of the realities and the problems, especially if the instructor takes advantage of the courses and mini cases that are there available in the whole packet. So we wanted to give students and professors a chance to put this into an applied setting, and that's what we hope to have accomplished with the book. Many companies, when they consider going abroad or consider the idea of international expansion at all, really don't think deeply about whether they're going to do things for opportunistic reasons or for strategic reasons. And many of our students will end up in these companies and can somewhat find themselves confused or befuddled as to whether their company really wants to do something or not. So we attack the problem from the perspective of, first, let's understand if there's a strategic imperative in why your company is seeking to go abroad. Most of the time that's about growth. But then once we get through that discussion, we then, and that exercise, so to speak, we then go into understanding what it takes to actually do it. And we get into the tactical considerations of implementing those processes. So it makes the student think through what the goal is that they're trying to accomplish as they go through the simulation, especially accompanied with the book, thinking that through. And then, well, once it's been determined, we're doing it. And in the case of the simulation, of course, that is something that's guaranteed. There is a strategic imperative. they're going to actually go about doing it. So they get to practice the tactical and they get to understand what's behind it. And that's really what's the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, and in having set up the book that way into module 1 and module 2.
So the Country Manager simulation game is a journey. It enables students to go through the whole process of determining where do we want to try to expand internationally, and how can we strategically and systematically begin to enter into one market, establish a brand, grow our presence, increase market share, become profitable, and continue that positive virtuous cycle as they expand into more and more countries and ultimately develop a strong regional presence. So the book is structured much in the same way. We want to make sure that the book and the simulation are very complementary, so that the issues that the students are tackling as they get deeper and deeper into the situation are being introduced, explained, and reinforced through the textbook chapters and the accompanying resources that are also available for students and for faculty in the textbook. So we really wanted to take a fully integrated approach so that the course really embeds the simulation in a very systematic and seamless way. So it really kind of maximizes the student's learning experience. Each chapter has a foundational text which covers the essential learning outcomes, topics, examples, and so forth for that particular chapter. But we know that students all learn differently, and faculty like to teach differently. So for each and every chapter, we have embedded a number of different resources, which ultimately will be up to each instructor to decide which ones they want to use. So in each chapter, you're going to find a case in brief, a very short case that can be fodder for an assignment or just could be useful for an in-class or an online discussion. There's also a longer case, all of which are coming from IMD business schools, some of which Doug and I have actually co-authored. And those cases are designed for courses in which the faculty would like students to do a real roll up their sleeves, deep dive analysis into a real company and focus on some international marketing challenges that that organization faced. We know that more and more marketing is becoming very, very data rich and analytic based. So as a result, in each chapter, you'll find an analytic assignment that you can choose to have your students work on. And it could be an in-class assignment, or it could be something that individual students or groups of students work on for an individual or team-based grade. We know that many of you are now using or teaching online, or that you're fully integrating a learning management system into an NC course. So we have discussion questions, which can be used both for in-class discussion as well as for discussion forums. Once again, those could be for assignments or just for pure discussion purposes. So we have a number of different resources available that students can be assigned and can help them really kind of apply the knowledge and the tools and the concepts that are being explained into the chapter. We also know that videos are increasingly important to assist student learning. So in each chapter, we have an interview with a seasoned international marketing manager or executive, and they represent some of the best named companies in the world: Coca-Cola, PayPal, and so forth. And so these are managers sharing their journeys, their challenges, their successes, the things that make international marketing such a rewarding career for them. And then, of course, we have in each chapter specific tie-ins to the Country Manager simulation game. So we have linkages to PowerPoint presentations, we have linkages to assignments and discussion forums, and so forth. So each chapter is very rich in terms of offering a number of different resources that faculty can choose to use and have their students be able to get a very comprehensive view and deep understanding of international marketing strategies and tactics.
Well, one of the things we discovered several years ago, along with co-authors Richard Ettinson and Sig-Young Ah, that is Marty and I as well, we wrote an article that was titled "The Seven Tudes," and it's about let's say the internal barriers in companies that stop companies from being successful in these international expansion activities that we're talking about. So the first 6 chapters of the book, as we just described, talk much about the what, the why, and the how. The 7th chapter turns the attention to these 7 Tudes, which we've determined to be attitude, aptitude, magnitude, latitude, rectitude, exactitude, and fortitude. And within that, there's a series of analyses of each of these internal behaviors within a company that might be holding the company back from being fully engaged in undertaking an international expansion activity. It's often invisible to the student and even to some of the companies that we've worked with as we developed this text and the article itself. Another tool that we have specifically in the book is the opportunity to connect and take that survey. There's 28 questions, 4 for each of those Tudes that I just described, that the student can take that really makes them reflect on what they've learned throughout the book, with a final case study that allows them to even further apply whether their organization in their mind is ready to take on a new international expansion opportunity, and to understand some of the more sublime, complicated, and subtle problems that might lie under the surface when they're trying to take on that next international expansion objective.
So what we have found through our experience in talking with many seasoned international marketing managers and executives is doing business internationally, particularly those responsible for the marketing functions, are essentially running a business. And they're running a business in a place that has many unknowns. The journey has many twists and turns, filled with lots of uncertainty and anxiety, but also a rich set of rewards in terms of being able to master the journey and ultimately being successful. So when we first designed the CountryManager game, we wanted to make it realistic and comprehensive in terms of the full range of activities that international marketing have responsibility for. And of course, some of those responsibilities they're sharing with other functional areas, but ultimately the buck tends to stop with the international marketer or the international marketing group. And so with the development of the Foreign Market Entry and Growth book, we wanted to make sure that we were just as comprehensive. So we're going to be thoroughly covering what is the imperative for doing business internationally? How does that align with other corporate objectives and strategic initiatives? What's the process that we can use to determine whether a market or set of markets are attractive for entry or not? And then how do we put together the essentials of the marketing program? How are we going to understand how each market is segmented, which customers we're going to target, how we're going to position our brand to be unique and differentiated in a highly competitive market? And then how do we put together that marketing program? Which products and services do we want to bring to market when? How are we going to price those products and services? How are we going to communicate them in a way that both pulls customers towards the brand and pushes it out into the appropriate channels where customers are likely to see it? And of course, managing distribution, which is so critically important in all markets, and certainly even more so in an international marketing context. So marketing is complicated. It includes a lot of different kind of functional activities and interactions with other functional groups within the organization. And that's exactly the type of experience we want our students to be exposed to, both through the simulation and through the textbook and the accompanying materials.
Well, so much has been said already by my colleague here and co-author, But I would add that one of the key points for me, as someone who has practiced this in past experiences with companies taking products abroad, I've come to say to my students often that nothing sharpens the vision or brings greater clarity to the understanding of a firm's value proposition and business model more than the prospect of taking it abroad. In other words, I've found students who suddenly understand what they actually are selling in their home market when they consider what it would mean to try to sell that in a foreign market. It's not that they didn't understand it before, but they didn't think about it as deeply. And what happens with the simulation, especially when combined with the book, it forces the student in a positive way to think of, how do I apply this, specifically the channels that were mentioned? How do I get my product into the market? Different scenarios in different countries of whether it's a more traditional based distribution channel or a more hypermarket oriented one. And these things, unfortunately, and as we know in universities, are often invisible because students just simply haven't come into contact with that kind of channel reality of how you don't sell much unless you go through those customers. And I think this book, combined with the simulation, gives that student the opportunity to understand that in a way that few other classes will allow them to do. And that's what I think we really hope to bring and think we are bringing when you combine these two. Well, one of the key elements that we see happening more and more among our students is their desire to use systems and platforms that are online based. And Interpretive does an outstanding job of bringing technology in an applied way to a real world scenario of the CountryManager. Now we combine that with all the elements that were mentioned previously of access to the content and the case studies and everything all on one platform. It's something that's very common for students, and I believe increasingly desired by students to use in their sort of gamified world. So I think Interpretive is the right company to be working with for this, and we're excited to be working together on it.
And having been working with Interpretive for a couple of decades now, both as a co-author, but more importantly, as a faculty member that's kind of using CountryManager and other simulations in my courses, no organization provides better customer support than Interpretive. And that support spans not only the quick responsiveness to instructors when you have a question, when you're having a hard time finding a resource, want some insight into how it may be used, want to connect with another professor to kind of get some kind of tips or feedback, but also the terrific response that your students are going to receive. So there's always a lot of uncertainty when you use a simulation or use a kind of any type of e-resource. But I can assure you that you and your students are going to be in great hands with Interpretive, and you'll be very satisfied with not only the responsiveness, but the quality of the support that they're going to provide you to make sure that your class is an outstanding and fun experience for your students and for you.